The conversation continues. Hi, this is Ralph Lewis. Join me this Thursday for another great interview.
I can maybe help in some small way or make sure that the links with the United Kingdom are working very well to support Cayman. And the UK is I think, the recognised tech leader in Europe, and certainly the traffic of guns and drugs and unfortunate people. All of this is something that we are very aware of and that we need to protect against. There's always a link up. If you look at security, it goes across everything, doesn't it? You know, for anyone out there who's wondering why Governor has not yet turned up on their doorstep, it's probably because I've got a plan to do so in the coming weeks and months.
Remember to like and share Cayman Times Facebook and YouTube pages for your reminder to another great interview this Thursday at 7:30 a.m. Happy New Year. I am Ralph Lewis and welcome back to Cayman Conversation for Season 3, now streaming on Cayman Times Facebook and YouTube channels. The Governor of the Cayman Islands, Her Excellency Jane Owens, has been making the media rounds, providing updates on her first 6 months in the Cayman Islands. During a recent conversation, she spoke about security, opportunities, governance, and culture. Now, here is that Cayman conversation. Good afternoon, Governor.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming along today.
And it's my pleasure to be here one more time to have a nice discussion with you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well, Ralph, and to all of your viewers and listeners. I hope everybody is enjoying 2024 so far and keeping up with their New Year's resolutions.
Yes, and how was your Christmas?
I had a great time, thank you. Yeah, spent it with family and some friends, enjoyed going out and about a bit. I did the Mastic Trail walk, which I really enjoyed as well, and a bit of swimming in the sea, which is definitely much colder than it was when I first arrived, yes, but still relatively warm for your average Brit like me, I think.
That's good. Well, since we last had our interview after you arrived, a lot must have happened. And so today I just want to get an idea of what has happened and ask a few questions about your role and how you see the Cayman Islands. So how has your experience been since you arrived?
Well, it's been amazing, actually. It's been very busy. It's been very enjoyable, very rewarding. It's been a real learning experience, and I'm so grateful to everyone who's really taken the time to explain to me about what they're doing, what they see as the opportunities and the challenges, and how I can maybe help in some small way or make sure that the links with the United Kingdom are working very well to support Cayman in every regard.
Okay, great. Was it what you expected to be doing?
I think I tried to come with a very open mind and not too many expectations, and so I've just been looking to talk and learn to as many people as possible. And I know I have still not got around anything like all of the people in the organisations that I planned to do. I think I had a greatly over-ambitious view of how much it's possible to do in 8 or 9 months. So now going into 2024, for anyone out there who's wondering why Governor has not yet turned up on their doorstep, it's probably because I've got a plan to do so in the coming weeks and months.
Okay, and I'm sure you're going to definitely keep it up. What's the most significant issue that you've experienced while you've been here during those months?
Well, I've really enjoyed working with both premiers who I've had the great privilege and pleasure to work with. So firstly Wayne Panton, and then obviously with the change of government now with the Honourable Juliana O'Connor-Connolly. So that was very significant that we were able to look at that transition as part of our democracy, and it all went very smoothly and calmly, and I think that's really a testament to the way in which processes and structures work here, including in our government and parliament. We had the Joint Ministerial Council with British ministers. In fact, we had 2 of those last year. We had one in May and one in November. So that was very significant because particularly the one in November, we were talking about the, making sure that our relationship was really working, that it was modern, that we were reviewing it. And we want to do that through what we're calling a bilateral compact or agreement that we intend to talk about over the coming months. So I think that is very significant, particularly for me in my role, to make sure that I'm supporting that in every way possible. And I know that Honourable Premier is very keen to get on and start talking about that, and to also start sharing with all of our people and public the sort of ideas that might come up in that. And then the other thing that we might talk about a little bit more about today is obviously security. So I'm very, very aware, particularly in my responsibilities under the Constitution, but just generally, that we need to make sure that Cayman remains safe and stable. We know that the threats and risks are increasing, so I am very aware of how important it is to work with our fantastic police, great police commissioner, our Coast Guard, our regiment, and the customs and borders, all of those people, and there are a great many out there, many of whom I haven't even mentioned, who can help to contribute to that endeavour.
Would you say that the security is one of the biggest challenges that is facing the Cayman Islands at this time?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is for everyone in the world, actually. I mean, you look around the world and it's clearly not becoming a safer place, is it? And I think a lot of the challenges that we are seeing are expanding and emerging, whether you're looking at even things like illicit finance or cyber or AI, certainly the traffic of guns and drugs and unfortunate people. All of this is something that we are very aware of and that we need to protect against.
The Cayman Islands has always been said to be one of the safest places to live.
Yeah.
But someone looking at what has happened over the years have seen the increase in robberies, a number of gun incidents. And is that a major concern to you? And what steps has been taken? Can you say briefly what to deal with this issue?
I think most people who look at Cayman Islands, and including a lot of the tourists that I speak to and the visitors who come here, they still say, wow, this place is beautiful and it is safe, relatively. And so our challenge is really to keep it that way. I've been very impressed working with Police Commissioner Kurt Walton in the way in which we are trying to have a very overarching approach to this. So part of it is, boots on the ground, police in our communities, the immediate response, including from our extremely well-trained firearm officers, etc., looking at violent crimes, but also working on our analysis techniques, our forensics, our intelligence capabilities, all of these, and just engaging with communities, because unless you're doing that, you're not really sure what's happening. And finally, at the broadest sense, figuring out what is happening in our communities, in our schools, how are people interacting with the new challenges or incentives for some of our young people around drugs and crime, and how are we managing that? How are we helping people to have choices in their lives so that they don't need to turn to or revert to a life of crime? So all of that has to come together, because if you don't have one leg of the stool working effectively, you're going to fall down, I think.
Like they say, it takes a community to raise a child.
Yeah.
And we can see how this is working. And I've noticed that the police actually increase their community presence and their programs. Do you think we have enough policemen on the streets or in the force? Do you think we should expand the force?
Well, I know that, all of this, these are all questions that our police commissioner is looking at, how are we using our resources, and where he feels that we need more resources, he will certainly ask for them. And one area that we have been looking at where we think we may need to do some more work, whatever that means, is making sure that our maritime boundary is properly protected. So we have a great Coast Guard. They're really effective. They're quite new, but they're already doing so much good work. And in fact, they've been working just over the last 2 weeks, not only with the US Coast Guard, who came out of Key West to have some discussions with us, but also the Jamaican Defence Force, who were there today. I went to have a look at their maritime patrol aircraft. So we are looking at these partnerships in the region, but also looking at what more we might need to do, because the sea is vast. and it is a primary route and an opening into our islands, and so we need to make sure that we have the best visibility possible of what's going on.
And I agree, and if I may add, the location of the Cayman Islands, we're in the center of a number of islands where, travelers can easily come in by boats, and so, you need to have all our borders protected or monitored. On a more positive note, what are the opportunities you see for the Cayman Islands that we probably could dwell on or encourage or work towards?
I mean, I think the great thing about Cayman is that there are numerous opportunities, and they do all many of them seem to be going in the right direction. So, the opportunity to do more, to attract more activity, and you could look at this in terms of tourism and visitors, for example, in terms of developing the beautiful environment that we have, in terms of developing our business. It's very interesting that we're all doing so great on financial services, and that continues to expand, and coming off the grey list has been, of course, very relevant in that. But whenever people are working on financial services, the closeness to sort of AI and tech is really significant. And of course, a lot of the stuff that goes on in the tech industry is not just finance, it's lots of things. We look at blockchain, it's not just cryptocurrency, loads of other things. And I've been very struck by the number of tech entrepreneurs who appear to want to come to Cayman and make it their home, and that's very exciting because it is it's the next big industrial revolution or tech revolution, isn't it? We need to absolutely be in the top sort of 20 bases for it in the world, so I think that should be the ambition.
And actually there are two institutions that have developed over time, which is Cayman Enterprise City and Cayman Tech, and they actually have encouraged these things. So for understand, you're saying that you can see that developing more, probably providing jobs for Caymans in that field. And particularly with AI, with that, the huge future of AI, maybe our young people who are in that field can embrace it. And maybe Cayman could be the Silicon Valley of the region.
Yeah, exactly. No, I really think so. And I think it's very telling that, Cayman has a presence in London and Washington, and they're about to have one in Singapore. And so, these are all bases. The UK is I think, the recognized tech leader in Europe. And then you've got, everything that's going on in the US, and then you've got Singapore as well. So these are obvious partners for us in the future. But you also mentioned young people, and it made me think also about culture, actually, because I think a lot of people regard Cayman culture as something that's been a bit forgotten and neglected in some circles in the past. And I know that a lot of people, including former Minister Bush, were very keen to see more of a renaissance of culture. We've got Heroes Day coming up, and I'm really pleased to see that it has a big cultural element to it in the evening. So I hope to see lots of people there on Monday evening next week. We're going to have fireworks as well, and some great food from all around different parts of the islands. So yeah, I think art, dance, paintings, fashion, all of those areas where Cayman really excels and has a great history is another thing we should be doing more to promote.
And I'm happy you brought up that topic of culture, because we've had conversations in the past that because we have individuals from over 100 different nationalities, the Cayman culture may get lost or overwhelmed, and there's not much of it around. But to hear you speak of how to embrace our Caymanian culture, it's so important. Just emphasize how important this is, if you may.
Yes, I think it is, and I think it is not just about tradition. I always find it really interesting looking at British culture, for example, and a lot of it is traditional, but it's also extremely modern, isn't it? And a lot of the modern culture comes from having influences from all over, and how over 500 years these have mixed in and made things different, made things as they are. So I think we shouldn't be afraid of embracing the wonderful sort of cosmopolitan nature of Cayman, and I think it does contribute to our culture. But what people in the British Council always used to say to me about culture in the UK, for example, was that if people believe in your tradition,
Yes.
they also have confidence in your modern culture. So that the fact that you have traditions and the fact that you can show them and you understand them is incredibly important for having credibility for what comes out today. And so having that link is absolutely crucial, I think.
And you made a great point. The growth of the country should not take away from the type of culture that we have. I'm from Montserrat. I've been here.
I visited Montserrat.
Yes.
I loved it.
I know. So I've been here 40 years. This is my home, Cayman Islands, but I still consider Cayman my home.
Yeah.
And the culture that I've seen over the years change is amazing. And I think, like you said, we should embrace the culture.
Yeah.
And of course, there are different types of culture because the culture from 25, 30 years ago is not the same as it is today,
Yeah.
but it's still a Cayman culture.
Yeah. I also think, sorry to interrupt you, but I've just been also involved in this cookout, which was taking place down on 7 Mile Beach, largely in the Ritz, I think. But it was very significant because it was involving a lot of our farmers and our growers and our produce, and therefore it was saying if you look at food culture in Cayman, it is not only important for our culture and heritage, but it's really important for jobs and for the future of our young people. So making that link and to say you can serve beautiful dinner made by top-class chefs, and it has Caymanian seafood, vegetables, beef, whatever. That's what it's all about, really.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to attend, but I'm sure there will be recordings.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff on the internet.
Over time.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Yes, and let's switch to the local government. You mentioned that you actually oversaw the transition from the other government to this one.
Yeah.
What's your relationship with the current government at this time?
Well, I think it's very good. I chair cabinet every week, which is a real privilege and a responsibility, and I take it very, very seriously. And it's always a great pleasure for me to sit down more or less once a week with the cabinet to discuss the issues of the day. And of course, a lot of the issues of the day are not at all within my direct areas of responsibility, but nevertheless, there's always a link up. If you look at security, it goes across everything, doesn't it? So we try to work together, think about the links not only with the UK but the international partnerships that we have, and just try to make sure that we're working together as a collective, and that's very important. I think it's very important to Premier O'Connor Connolly that we are working as a team, and I'm very impressed that I think she is achieving that as an outcome.
Okay, and I know that in the recent Parliament, there was the Speaker actually said we need to stabilize the government and make sure that at least until the next election that we can have one government and make sure that things get done and we stabilize the ship. Do you think that it's been stabilized? From what you've seen? Well,
I think that, the important thing for me is that the government are clear about their priorities, which I think they are, and that they're working hard to achieve them. And I'm constantly impressed by how much time all of our politicians, and not just those who are in cabinet, but, people, others in the government or outside the government, in the opposition, everybody does work really hard with a really strong sense of serving their community and their people, and that is what it's all about. That's why you go into politics, isn't it? I've never been in politics. I'm not a politician. I don't feel particularly political. Well, I don't feel at all political here, actually. But I've always been impressed that is what drives politicians, and it's what makes the whole system work.
And I personally feel we should give them an opportunity to do the job that they have ahead of them, rather than rushing them to come to some conclusion. I think that give them time. They just created a government, give them time to make them get matured in these positions, and so that they can deliver on their promises.
And of course, a lot of the politicians who are currently in government were there before, so it's not a completely new team. Right. But the other thing I would say is that all of the issues that we look at are long-term issues, aren't they? Whether you're looking at security and crime and how you're going to combat it, or housing, or agriculture, or education, or health.
Yes.
You can't just look at it in 1 year. And I think most governments would recognise that they have advantages from taking some of the progress that the previous government has done. This happens in every country, doesn't it? So, you know, we have to just continue to keep in mind that we're all working for the good of Cayman and for the benefit of the people here, so that, you know, ultimately 2024 can be a good year for everyone.
Okay, very good. My final question, fishing on a positive note, what would you consider Cayman's #1 asset? And how does it compare with other Caribbean territories or other overseas territories?
Yeah. Well, it sounds a bit trite probably, but easy to say, but I do think it's the people. I think that's because people here have a great positive attitude. I think that doesn't mean they're sort of ambitious in a negative way, but I think they are quite ambitious in a positive way. And I think that people are also very community minded. So they're often thinking, what can I do for the country? What can I do for my local community? What can I do for the person I just saw who's having some kind of difficulty, whether it's financial or mental health or whatever it might be? People are very generous in that way, I think. And finally, I think people here are pretty outward looking, which means they are looking to see the good they can get from traveling and experiencing other cultures, other experiences, bringing that back home, welcoming people like me into the community, into their homes, into their stories. So all of those things taken together, positive attitude, community approach, and being open-minded are probably the things that make Cayman a really strong country.
And would you say that that has caused Cayman to be so attractive, and that in tandem with the standard of living that we have here makes it stand out from amongst other members of the Caribbean?
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly attractive place to go. And I can't tell you the number of people who I've spoken to who said, oh yes, I came here for 6 months or 2 years, and now, you know, 22 years, I'm still here. And that sounds like you're a bit, you know, in that same camp. But maybe you didn't just come for 2 years at the beginning. But yes, I've not yet spoken to anyone living here who said anything negative about the fact that they've chosen to live here. Not a single person. And I think that is very unusual, and I'm not sure you'd have that experience anywhere else you went.
Okay. Well, Governor, thank you for your time, and hope to speak with you again. And enjoy the rest of your year, your time with us. And I look forward to seeing you at those events and actually mixing with our people and just partaking of that Caymanian culture.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ralph, and thanks very much to all your listeners and viewers.
We thank Governor Owens and listeners for joining us today, and invite you to add your comments and questions on our social media feeds. Remember to like our Facebook and YouTube pages for your invitation to our next conversation, and also pick up your free Caymanian Times newspaper on Wednesdays and Fridays. Until next time, have a great weekend and be Cayman kind.